Welcome to the Back Office Show, your peek behind the privacy curtain of successful healthcare operations. Get ready to learn how every bedpan is a potential gold mine in every staff meeting, a strategic summit. All right, I'm getting a little carried away here. Get ready to learn from the grandmasters of healthcare, their secrets for success. And now, let's welcome your host, Steve Shane.
It's nice to have everybody back. Thank you to all the avid listeners that have told me that they enjoyed the podcast. I really appreciate you, and I'm really excited to have our wonderful guest here today, Bluma Broner. Welcome to the Back Office Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bluma is the head of healthcare at CIBC Bank, and aside for a very well accomplished, but also a very inspiring person. And Bluma, if you're okay with it, I'd like to actually start off not talking about business, but personally, I know that you're a mom, you're involved in the community, you're very, very accomplished in your career. At LTC, we have many moms working for us who are also trying to juggle their career and their life and their responsibilities. Do you believe in work-life balance?
So of course,
it's a loaded question.
Yeah. So of course, I believe in work-life balance, and I think that phrase means something different depending on what stage of life you're in. So when you have little kids, when you have kids that are everybody's in school gone all day, and then as your kids age out and maybe even leave the house. So all of that means something different depending on the time of your life and stage of your life that you're at. I'm going to tell you something else. I don't think that every day is balanced. I think on the whole, your life is balanced. So some days there'll be a lot of imbalance, okay? So that can mean, so for example, when my children were young, I never missed any of their Chumash plays or their Siddur plays, okay? But that sometimes meant that I would get on to the computer after they went to sleep. When Shabbos starts at 4 o'clock and I was signing off early in the afternoon, that could also mean that Motzei Shabbos, I was getting on to take care of everything that happened the rest of Friday when I was offline. So to speak, my imbalance was my balance. It was the way I balanced things, not necessarily doing everything in the normal working hours. Okay?
So you're saying there's a cost for everything. If you're going to dedicate time today to your family, to your children, that means tonight or tomorrow, you're going to have to put double the effort to cover what you needed.
I don't know if it's double. I would tell you that I think as women and moms, we're really great at multitasking sometimes and also good at time management. And so I think when you can manage that, you can accomplish a lot, even in some of the smaller, hours that you have. And I think you really learn how to do that well as you take on more. They always say, if you want to get something done, go ask the busy person.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think that happens because you learn how to manage your time and how to prioritize the right things and get what needs to get done, and then move on.
On that point, by the way, I should mention that I really appreciate you finding the time for us to do this recording. Being that you are a busy person, I know we had personal schedule conflicts, international conflicts that got in the way. A lot of stuff got in the way, so thank you very much for finding the time.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Back to that comment that you mentioned. So were there ever any situations where you're like, I can't compromise on this for my family, and something on the business side had to be pushed aside, or vice versa? Are there certain things, I guess I'm asking, that you would not compromise on, regardless of how much pressure there may be on the other side?
Halacha. So that's going to be a non-compromising position. You know what I'm saying? We're not compromising on what I eat, when I work. Those kinds of things are absolutely not compromising. I would tell you, my kids will call me, and we made a system that if I'm in a meeting, I don't answer. If it's an emergency, they call right back, and then I know that I need to step out. Okay, but so that's so we've come up with ways sometimes so that they're not just calling me, "Hey mom, how are you?" And I'm like, I'm in the middle with people here. So that kind of thing. So we've made ways so that they know that I'm available to them if they need me, if it's really an emergency. Otherwise, really we find time and I'll call them back. I see that I missed a call, I'll call them back later. The school would call if I saw, when they were in, I would excuse myself from a meeting and go answer the call.
Telemarketers also start doing the double call. I don't know if you ever get it. They call, they hang up, and they call again. So you have to make sure to differentiate. Telemarketers don't answer the double call. Family, yeah.
Thank God my kids' numbers are saved in my phone.
Do you not answer non-recognized numbers? I don't usually.
Many times I will not. I'll tell you, if they have 845, especially area codes, I don't answer those.
718.
It's very interesting. Most of those calls where they're screaming at you in Yiddish come from 845 845 numbers for some reason.
Yeah, that's where the headquarters is at.
Yeah, but actually I will sometimes answer calls because I never know if it's a prospect or a client, or even your call today. When you called me the first time, it showed up as potential spam. I think when people call from call centers, or if they have a number of, the way the number shows up, it'll sometimes show up as potential spam. But I knew that I was expecting a call from you.
That makes sense. Okay, so you have a good system of how you basically prioritize and how family knows they can rely on you, but you got your boundaries.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And as impressive as it is that you're head of healthcare, I'm sure you didn't start that way. Take us to, where was your first cubicle in banking? Where did you get your humble beginnings? I know it's probably a long journey, but just to give us an idea so people understand.
So I went to Israel for seminary, like most girls do today after high school, and I loved it, and I stayed a second year. And during that second year, I met my husband, Yishai, and we got married at the end of the second year. And at that point, I switched over to Hebrew University, and I finished my degree in economics there. That was for me that was a very big culture shock. Just so you can get an idea, I did my degree in economics. There were 600 freshmen, definitely less than 10 from people. Okay, and this was in Israel, and so it was a very big culture shock, and it was very hard for me to make friends in the beginning. Coming in with a skirt, and whether it was a hat, a snood, a tichel, a sheitel, you stood out. I finished a degree in economics, and we were living in Yerushalayim there. And then at the time, there was not a lot of industry in Yerushalayim. There were not a lot of businesses. There were small businesses, stores, but not big companies. Today, it's very different. And basically, with the degree, I had two options. I could do banking, or I could do the Treasury Department. So I actually interviewed for both of them. And I chose banking because the Treasury's official hours were 8 to 6. But when I interviewed, it was during budget season. And I think my interview was somewhere around 8 o'clock at night. And the place was hopping. Okay. And they told
I'm not doing this.
And I was 7 months pregnant at the time. And so I was going to have a baby. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to work. And they told me that during budget season, you're there till sometimes midnight. But also nobody stays for more than 2 years. This is like an amazing entree into the business world, meaning afterwards you're scooped up. But I chose to go into banking. And again, I don't know that many people grow up and say, oh yes, I want to be a commercial banker when I grow up, unless you have somebody in the family that does that. But I fell into a career that I absolutely loved. It was a way to use your mind and your people skills all at once. And so I started in Bank Leumi in Israel. And I was on a fast track for management program there. And that's where I started my career. I was doing general commercial banking then.
Now Bank Leumi is a household name. Everybody knows it here in the States. I don't know at the time if it was as large. Was it? It was probably more
I was in
local.
Israel.
Yeah.
No. So in Israel, everybody knew Bank Leumi. That's like.
But how big was it on an international scale?
They were pretty big then.
Oh, really?
Well, but again, everything is relative. Today, there is no Bank Leumi in the U.S. It was bought by Valley, right? They merged with Valley. There is no more anymore. But it was a nice size. Bank Leumi USA was a nice sized bank. Again, you can't compare it to somebody like a Citibank or J.P. Morgan or Wells or Bank of America. But it was a regional bank.
Amazing. And I guess you took your skills that you learned there when you moved back to the States. I'm sure your resume spoke a lot in order to get you into.
So actually,
you're saying no. Okay.
Not so much. Like Hebrew U, again, if you are doing classic economics, probably one of the best in the world. But here, like, especially I live in Chicago, it was, University of Indiana, University of Illinois, like nobody heard of PeopleU. You know what I mean? A degree in economics, like Bank Leumi was a small bank, so it wasn't anything, the resume wasn't anything great. I actually
kind of start from the bottom again.
Yeah, absolutely had to start from the bottom again.
Wow.
I was working at Bank Leumi. When I moved back to Chicago in 2000, I was working at Bank Leumi in Chicago. And I just ended up having about 50% of my clients were healthcare clients. And LaSalle Bank was a large regional bank here in Chicago, based in Chicago. And we had a lot of shared clients. And they were booming and they were bursting. And they were having a hard time just even finding people. And so one of my clients suggested to them that they call me. And they came and recruited me, and that's how I moved over. That's
great. So you got pulled in. You didn't have to reach out to them.
Correct. It was amazing. Hashem really, really, really watched out for me.
That's amazing. That's really special. I also want to comment that somebody listening, as much as you've been living in Chicago, you still say Chicago, not Chicago. So you haven't been fully corrupted for some reason, your accent.
No, Chicago is, I grew up here.
Yeah, but you're not saying Chicago. Why is that? Isn't that the official pronunciation of a local Chicagoan?
No, I think that's the way New Yorkers say it. No?
Chicago?
Yeah. And we say it Chicago.
So. Really?
I don't know.
This is going to be a soundbite. We're going to have to let everybody on LinkedIn decide what the right way for locals to do it is.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of opinions on this.
Okay, so moving into the general healthcare industry, there are always changes. We're so lucky to be in healthcare because you got to stay on your toes. There's the one big beautiful bill, then you have Medicaid rate changes, and then you have so many different things and regulations. As a lender, you do have to be on top of it because this is your money being lent to people that are in this industry. How do you stay on top of all these changes, and what's your advice for operators in regards to their interaction with the bank when it comes to these constant changes?
Okay,
it's a loaded question also, I apologize.
Correct. So how do I stay on top of it? I read McKnight's every day. I read Senior Care Investor. Zimit puts out a weekly email. Jay Gormley puts out weekly emails. And constantly talking to our clients about what's going on in their states, with their facilities, in their different associations, what's going on. I mentioned to you before, I had a client who once told me, "Tell me the rules of the game and I'll play." And I thought it was one of the most brilliant lines because the rules here are constantly changing and evolving. And as an operator, you must stay on top of it. And it's a lot of work. So whether you have somebody in your company, if your company is of size that you can have somebody that's making sure that they're understanding each state that you're in, what the Medicaid rules are, how you have to bill, all the insurance companies, making sure that you're on top of that. Or if you hire an outside consultant that makes sure that you are staying on top of it. But it very much worries me if I can ask a client what's the changes that are happening in their state and they're totally clueless. Or how are they dealing with a change that I heard about that's going on in their state and they don't have a quick answer for me.
If you know about it before them, that's not good.
No, exactly right.
But that's a great, powerful line, and it really also shows how nimble healthcare operators need to be, that they're able to learn what the rules of the game are and then get ready to play it, because that's how quickly things are changing, and that's how on top of things you need to be.
Exactly. You really, really need to understand all the time the rules. And I would tell you that more than anything, the care of your resident has to be top of mind. I one time had somebody, when I asked him, "Why are you in this business?" And he told me to make money. And I said, "Wow, okay, that's important, but if that's the reason, I'm probably not going to be the bank for you."
Please tell me they're not in business anymore.
They are not.
Figured.
Because in the end, you take care of people, and this is a people business.
Yes.
And it's, I think, something that also gives me, because it's not only that I'm doing finance, we're doing finance that affects people's lives on a daily basis. And when we walk through facilities, we go visit every facility of ours that we finance. And we see the way the facilities are held, and do the people know the residents' names? Do they know their employees' names? Do they care what it looks like? Do they care if it's clean? Do they care if there's a smell? These are all things that this is a the people's homes. This is where they're living all the time. And you want to know that as best as they can, they're doing what's in their power to make sure they get good care.
That's so important, and it's true. It is a fulfilling position if you think about the fact how you're affecting positively the care that's going into the facilities. A lot of people don't realize that connection is really there. I think during COVID, we were saluting all the healthcare heroes on the front lines, and a lot of the healthcare heroes were really in the back, whether it was back office or in the banks or whoever it is that were letting the gears turn and letting everything run, and it's really important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, it really is. We had clients that were actually in their facilities. Like when housekeepers didn't show up, they were doing housekeeping jobs because in the end, they wanted to make sure that the people were getting care and that things were being done well. And that, again, when it's those types of people that you're banking, you feel a sense of pride in who your clients are.
Absolutely. I think that's the right priority, 100%.
I'll tell you even more than that. I will tell you that clients that prioritize care, it may cost them a little more in the beginning, but in the end, they have the best names out there and the facilities are always full, and they're the ones who end up making a lot of money.
Yes, absolutely. And I always see it too, and I think it's a matter of focus. When they're focusing on doing what's right, the money comes because you're doing something good, your reputation's there, everything's working, and you can grow. I don't know if this is a good application also, but I find that the ones that are penny pinching on a little cost here that's going to enhance care or a little cost there and not focusing on the big picture are also sometimes so pigeonholed in those little things that they don't have that vision of, let me just grow this, give the care that needs to be given and do it right. And often I see people tripping up that way too.
Absolutely.
What about many states have been increasing their Medicaid rates? People get excited when their Medicaid rate goes up. Does that mean they can come back to you as their lender and say, okay, we're ready to refi and cash out?
This happens so often. It's almost become comical. Listen, let's talk history. In the past, rates would go up, and then you'd have employees coming, and then you'd have to raise. We knew that not all that rate increase would go to the bottom line, because it used to be, and I'm talking about way before COVID, that rates would rise first and then all the other costs. COVID and everything that happened since then, and tariffs and all the things that are changing now, costs are going up, and only then are the rates coming up. So the rates are they're lagging behind a lot of what's happening. So a lot of the rates have been given, but we don't ever believe it's all going to flow to the bottom line. And also, we want to see a consistency of performance. And I cannot tell you how many times I'll get somebody that will show me 1 month of performance, and based on that 1 month, wants to cash out, and again, that's not something we're willing to do. We want to see a consistent performance.
Of course, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned tariffs. There are changes like the tariffs. There's changes like maybe immigration policy that's affecting staffing or DOGE. Are these words that swirl around your office when you have to analyze facilities and try to deal with these hurdles?
So all the time, we have to put in a tariff impact into every loan presentation that we do. Now, let's be clear. Most of the cost, 64%, I think that's like the average, is employees. And if you probably looked at what your costs are on, whether it's pharmaceutical, anything that can have tariffs on it, pharmaceuticals or supplies, it's probably less than 10% of the costs in your facility. So while tariffs will affect it, it probably doesn't really affect a big number on the bottom line. And I think that the basic medical supplies can be sourced from many, many different places. So again, understanding the rules of the game, understanding where you're sourcing from, how much tariffs are happening from that specific place, where you can switch to, having that ability to be nimble is huge. And so while we do address it, the tariff part is not a big issue for us. We'd love to see immigration reform policy so that people can get more caretakers from outside. I don't think it's happening anywhere at the rate that people want it to happen to, or the pace that people hope that it would happen.
Right. I'm so impressed as I'm listening that you have to get so down into the details of the P&L of a facility and what exactly affects it one way or the other because you need to live and breathe the business in order to understand how you're going to interact with them. And
When somebody
people realize
comes,
that.
yeah, when somebody comes and says, "I'm buying this facility, they operated horribly, and we're going to turn it around," we need to really understand how they're going to turn it around.
Right.
Where exactly are they going to make the changes, and how are those changes going to affect that bottom line? So yeah, we have to understand how much would we be reasonable to have costs of food per day, or now I'm not going to tell you that I know everything, but then we also have systems that we can go back and check and see what are others doing, and we have enough clients that we can also check against them.
That's amazing. It's necessary, I see. So it's not even a question. What about the interest rate environment? How is that affecting transactions? Not happening as often, obviously, or are you seeing people hesitant or now jumping back in? Where do you feel the temperature is on that?
So for the longest time, interest rates were low, and we kept on saying they're going to go up, they're going to go up, and we felt like a little bit of a broken record because we kept on saying it and it didn't happen. If you take a long view of history, you know what I mean? Interest rates where they are now are probably somewhat normal.
Yeah.
For those that sort of grew up, you know what I mean, in the last 15 years in this industry, they think 2 and 3% is normal. That's not normal. That's, you know what I mean? That is not a normal way to that's not a normal interest rate environment. So they were, coming into this industry in a time that I would tell you where interest rates were artificially, well, I mean, not artificially, they were low, but we knew that it couldn't hold out for the long term. It did affect a lot of clients as interest rate went up. Their carry on the interest carry could sometimes double and more than that for some of the clients, and that was all of a sudden a huge, and if you were on a low margin or if you were barely covering before, this really hurt you. It really hurt you. I'll tell you who also made a huge difference. If you were a landlord and you had set your rent based on interest rates, and during that time your loan refinanced, all of a sudden the rent that you were getting wasn't enough to cover the debt service on your loan. So if you didn't think about that when you created those contracts, that they would reset based on interest rates.
Yeah.
We had a lot of clients that were in trouble, that were literally having to put their hands in their pockets every month to make up the difference between rent and debt service.
That's terrible. Yeah, but it's terrible because it's avoidable if you just set up your contract right, between operator and property.
I know, but as much as we told people rates will go up, and I understand why they didn't believe us. We've been saying it for so long.
Right, and they don't want to believe it, honestly, because
Correct.
That's the margin.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I think even if interest rates, taper off a little, I don't think they're tapering off in a big way. I think we should expect this sort of environment for a while.
People should get comfortable with this, and when they're underwriting, they should understand that this is the environment and make sure the business works with this environment.
Exactly right. You have to build in shocks to the environment. You can't be always on the edge. Because there's always going to be a shock.
Well.
Yeah.
Right.
There's always changes in this industry.
Are there changes in regards to general reimbursement rates or CMI or things like that that you feel, again, are affecting loans or that operators should know about that they may not?
I don't know. Listen, I hope that I don't know something that an operator doesn't. If that's the case, we're in really big trouble. Okay, so that's number one. But I do think that value, again, reimbursing for quality care is becoming more of a thing in more states. And I think we're going to see that grow. So as much as we'd like to say, and as much as I even believe that star ratings in some ways are very subjective, and you can't only look at a star rating, but quality measures are in your power. And you need to make sure that your quality measures are up to par. And you need to be able to talk about the quality of care that you're giving whenever you're sitting with an insurance company, with a hospital, with discharge planners. You need to be able to tout the quality, because the minute you have that rehospitalization happening, it's going to cut more and more into their rates, and they're going to take it from you in the end, and they're going to send you less and less patients.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you've seen things spiral out of control when that happened, when people's star rating or CMI or something did go down, and now you have to deal with that mess. Has that happened?
Absolutely, it has happened. I will tell you, our good operators had it created quality relationships with the hospitals so that they knew about their programs. So even if they had a bad survey, they had enough of a relationship that when they had these good quality programs happening, they knew they could explain what happened and explain why the hospital should still feel comfortable sending them patients. And if you develop that relationship, it can still work. But yes, we had clients that all of a sudden got hit and they lost contracts with insurance companies and with hospitals. And because they had not developed those deep relationships and were not able to quickly tout off or show examples of patients that they were able to really treat well, they lost contracts and and we saw it. We saw it hit the amount of Medicare that they were able to receive, the amount of residents that were being referred to them.
Of course. Would you say the same kind of rule applies for their communication with you, that they kind of have to be transparent and jump on things right away? Or should they just hope that you don't identify it and hopefully they can get out of the hole quickly?
No, I'm telling us about it always ahead of time. When we're prepared, we know how to answer the questions. We can also prepare our credit people. When things hit the news and that's how we find out about it, it's horrible. It's horrible for everybody because all of a sudden we're chasing our tails, trying to run down the story and answer questions that had we known about it and been able to prepare everybody, that relationship would have been much clearer. It would have been everybody would understand the deep relationship we have and the transparency, and everybody would have been prepared. When that happens, we can really work with our clients to get through the issues.
So communicate quick and communicate often.
Yes, all the time.
Okay. I see we're hitting 1:30. If you want to stop here, we can. Otherwise, I would try to do a little game show if you have another 5 or so minutes, but let me know honestly if you have the time.
Go ahead.
Okay. So we like to play a game at the end of our podcast. Today's game is going to be called Won't You Be My Lender? And I'm going to give you 5 candidates that are potential loan applicants that would like to have a loan from you guys in order to operate the facility. You could respond either that it's a deal maker or a deal breaker if you think there's any potential in giving them a loan or it's not happening. Okay? Okay, first is Startup Susan. She has great experience, great relationships, but no track record operating a facility. Can you lend me money so I can get my first facility? What do you tell me?
She's never operated a facility before in her life. Is that what you're telling me?
Not as an owner. I've been administrator.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. We would definitely take a chance on somebody like that. They're going to have to bring probably more capital to the game in the beginning, just to make sure that they're there to weather the storm. And it would also be helpful if they had some sort of backing from somebody. But we've definitely taken chances on new operators. If they have experience and they've operated before, even as administrator or a regional, and they've grown and now they want to go on their own. Absolutely.
That's amazing. For all the administrators that are listening, there is hope for you. Yes. You can do this.
You can't come with $1 in the pocket. You may have to have a little bit more.
Yes.
You have to raise enough capital, but yes.
So deal maker. We're going to go with. Perfect. Next is Turnaround Tom. I got a 1-star facility, bad surveys, low occupancy, but there's so much potential. I'm telling you, I can turn this place around. Are you looking at Tom seriously, or come on, everybody says that?
If Tom can show me how he's done it in other places and show me his costs and say to me, listen, if I layer on my pharmacy costs, my supply costs, my insurance costs, and I layer it onto this facility and I have these contracts in place, and only with a few little tweaks, I can turn this facility around. Absolutely.
So it has to be reasonable, and he has to be able to show you proof that
Correct.
He's done it, and you believe that he can do it again.
Correct.
Amazing. That's 2.
Again, have to bring capital, but yes.
I think that's the running idea here, is that you can't take too much risk when there's more risk to be taken, and therefore they have to bring more capital.
Correct.
Okay. Medicaid Marty. My facility has 85% Medicaid census. It's steady, but I don't have such a good quality mix. Is that something concerning to you, or okay, this is a different kind of facility, but maybe it can work?
If you're making money on Medicaid, no problem.
You're skeptical, though.
Again, it depends which state you're in. I can tell you that there's no question that in Oregon you can make money on Medicaid. You know what I mean? Depending on the state, if you're 85% and you found a way, I can tell you, when we Medicaid assisted living, we do these facilities all the time.
Right.
Those can work. Skilled, it's a little harder. But if you find a way and you can show me how you're doing it, I'm always willing to listen.
If the numbers work, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Number 4, Rural Rita. Nice facility, but the location is out there. So it's a little concerning probably. How are we getting referrals here? How many feeder hospitals there are? But the facility is top-notch, great care, great quality, great staff. How does that seem to you?
I need to do a little more digging. It's not only where they're getting patients from, it's where they're getting employees from. So the question is, we've actually taken time and we'll look and we'll see how is census tracked, meaning not census in a facility, but how many people. Are people moving into the area? Are they leaving the area? Is there industry coming into the area? Is industry leaving the area? And then again, I would tell you, it's what the basis is. If they're buying this facility for really cheap and they don't need to have a full facility in order to make it work, we can also look at that too.
And a full facility means they don't need to have too much staff either.
Correct.
Obviously, that goes into the calculation.
Correct. So really, your basis is really important.
I got it. All right, so that's a yes. Okay, the last one. Judgment Jimmy. He's a nice guy, but he does have a judgment in his past, or he defaulted on a loan. But really nice guy. He's here to make amends and really do a great job. What do you say about Jimmy?
Not a chance in heck. Nope. That's a clear no. Nope. Done. You've done it once, you'll do it again.
And have you seen that?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I have seen it, and we won't touch those with a 10-foot pole.
Is it their personality? They just don't. They're too tempted by the opportunities they see to do things illegitimately, and they just are likely to do it again. What would you say is the reason why? So this is going to be very Jewish, but there's a Jewish phrase called Shem Tov, right? Is better than Shemin Tov. A good name is better than good oil. Okay? Yep.
If you don't have a good name out there, your reputation, character is if you'll ever learn credit, there's something called the 5 C's of credit. Character is the top one. And if you got a judgment against you, that means that you didn't find a way to work it out with your bank. You forced their hand to go to court and to get a judgment against you. I don't want to take that risk.
That makes perfect sense, and I think that quote is so appropriate here because that's what it is. Your reputation
Steve, you're frozen
is what you
for me. I don't know if I'm frozen for you.
No,
okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
But yes, I understand it very well, and unfortunately for Jimmy, he's not getting a loan. But for everybody else, it sounds like they're going to be doing okay.
We will definitely try to work with them.
Bring a little extra cash and bring a lot of updated information to justify what you believe.
Data is really important. We dig. We annoy people sometimes with our digging, but it helps us make their case for them.
If they don't want you to dig, you just won't give them your money. I mean, it's up to them.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So
right.
I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being flexible here. And Bluma, it was a real pleasure. And
okay.
Please send regards to your husband.
I will. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All righty. Take care.